What do you think? You think they stand a chance? Well, you're on their side, aren't you? Who are you betting on,
Magic mirror on the wall. Who is the fairest one of all?
Look at these lies.
One shall stand, one shall fall.
Even if one of them survives,
the only way to stop him is to make another movie.
Welcome to the Celluloid Mirror. I am one of your hosts, Jon Mannion.
And I am your other host, Nicole Solomon. On the Celluloid Mirror, we take two different films and look at what they reflect about each other, the audience, and our culture at large.
And today we're talking about Jon M. Chu's Wicked and Jessica Bendinger's Stick It. Mostly because if you say them together, they sound the same. Wicked, Stick It. That's the whole thing. Episode's over.
Wicked and Stick It. That's my song.
That's your song?
That's my song. I'll be singing it again. But first, we're going to start by giving a brief synopsis of each film, and then we're going to discuss our responses to the films as well as the critical responses before diving in on what the films say about each other.
That sounds amazing.
Amazing. Me too.
I'm excited to see how anything turns out. Ever. This is only like our 20th episode? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, it's
our second episode this way of the gritty reboot.
The gritty reboot.
On YouTube,
it's true.
With our live streaming on YouTube.
I mean, I don't know, Sean. Are we counting just Celluloid Mirrors, or are we also counting our previous podcast and the spinoff of our previous podcast, The 4-Minute Circus? Because if we start counting all those.
No, I'm not counting all those.
All right,
this
great.
is a separate. This is the Celluloid Mirror is totally different from those. I would count the 4-Minute Circus as just a continuation of the 4-Mile Circus podcast, especially because that's on just the same feed. But
things to battle it out about with Rock'em Sock'em Robots later, I suppose. Exactly. Unless anybody in the chat has a lot of feelings on this.
There's nobody in the chat, but you know what there is? A request if you could scoot back. Well, not that back, but to your away from your microphone ever so slightly, right there. Yeah, just centering you on the camera. That's all.
Please always make these requests because I'm not gonna know.
Exactly, and that was a request from me in the chat, but I didn't put it in the chat because I'm on the video with you, and we're having a chat. That's kind of how this works.
Convenient. Convenient.
So that's fun. That's fun. How that works.
Kind of you know what else is fun?
What else is fun?
A couple things. Magic.
By who? Who's magic?
Witches.
Okay.
Cool witches doing
witches.
Cool magic. Cool witches.
Not like nerdy witches.
No.
Not nerdy witches. Okay.
Rebellious. Badass. Unconventional, inspiring, cool witches.
Cool witches. Okay.
And gymnastics.
Now,
it's not gymnastics.
It's not gymnastics at all. I do have a question about the cool witches. Is there any relation to Cool Whip?
I'm sure there is, but I can't.
They're like cousins or something. Cool Witches, Cool Whip. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to talk about it.
Probably
That's secret.
The children of the Cool Jerk.
Yeah. And yeah.
That's as far as I can go. That's the only thing. You're safe. You're safe. That's as far as I could think of anything. Sorry.
Thank goodness.
So should we tell people about what these films are?
That's what we're here to talk about, I guess. So yeah, let's do it.
Are here to talk about the films. So if you haven't seen it, Jon M. Chu's Wicked is about Elphaba. I think it's Elphaba.
Elphaba.
I keep wanting to say Elphaba.
Me too, and I don't know why, but
Like
I
alfalfa,
also have that.
I think something like that.
Could be.
Jon M. Choose Wicked is about how Elphaba, a misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Galinda, a popular girl, become friends at Shiz University in the Land of Oz. Then, after an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz, their friendship reaches a crossroads. That's the description from IMDb, which really tells you very little about the story.
Yeah, and the description from IMDb of Stick It tells us that Jessica Bendinger's Stick It is about Haley, who, after a run-in with the law, is forced to return to the world from which she fled years ago, enrolled in an elite gymnastics program run by the legendary Burt Vickerman, played by Jeff Bridges, by the way. Haley's rebellious attitude slowly gives way to team spirit. I mean, that's one way of describing it.
That is. I mean, I think the connections between these films are obvious from those descriptions.
It's very clear.
They're about ladies.
Yeah, let's not insult our audience by explaining to them that both of these films, ladies first.
What?
I know.
What did you think of these films?
I fucking love these films, Sean.
Do you?
I have been a Stick It stan for almost 20 years now.
Yes.
My boss once got mad at me at work because I was trying to convince everybody to watch Stick It and was explaining that it's better than Bring It On, which I don't even stand by. I'm not saying it's better. It is, though, much more underrated and underappreciated than Bring It On, which and unknown. Yeah, absolutely. Under-discussed, which is why I was just like, no, Stick It is better. And which is better? Who's to say? It's a
natural instinct to go for when you really want people to get into it. Yeah.
And that's the point here, is that I saw Stick It. I was very excited by it. I thought it was a great film. And I'm excited that now you've seen Stick It and you also understand that it's a great film. Wicked, on the other hand, is up for a bunch of Oscars. A lot of people know that's a great film. And I was really happy. I'm not in that I am not a Wicked stan, or at least I wasn't. I've never seen the musical. Like, I knew what it was, but I wasn't really familiar with the music or anything. I hadn't read the novel, I hadn't seen the show. Really enjoyed the movie. Thought it was great. Can make some complaints about the lighting and stuff, but like production design, costume design, the acting, it's great. And what do you think about these films?
I very much like Stick It. I definitely wouldn't go as far for me to say that it's better than Bring It On. I think it has more to say than Bring It On, but I think it's actually saying probably more than Bring It On and is a little bit slightly deeper. Not a lot, but slightly. But as far as like overall like film, I think, and we are comparing to Bring It On. I can't remember if you mentioned or not, because Bring It On was written by Jessica Bendinger. They are they are similar films in that Bring It On is cheerleaders are gymnasts, but with shouting, and other things.
Pom-poms.
Like there's a lot of related
Chants.
skills. There's a lot of related skills. But Jessica Bendinger wrote Bring It On. That was very successful. She wrote Stick It and directed Stick It. And it was less successful, but it is excellent. And I think that there's a lot going on in it. And
less financially successful. You mean,
successful.
Not like as a film, just... I mean, that maybe, but what you were referring to.
It depends. Like from a couple of standpoints, like I would say that, like I said, I think that it has more to say. I think it does a lot of interesting things. I love the way it's cut. I very much love the way it's cut. I enjoyed revisiting it. The first time I watched it was over the pandemic with you and some other folks on text, and that was super fun. It was a nice film to discover, basically, to be like, okay, my friend really likes this, so I'll probably at least like it somewhat. You know, usually that's the case. But then like it had that moment, I think, when they're doing the training montage and suddenly they're just kind of showing them all at once, like going up to the bar and spinning around, because they composited those all together, and it was really visually interesting and something I wouldn't have expected. And I was like, oh, cool. You surprised me. That's awesome. And then, you know, the story stuff is really good. And I'll always have a special place in my heart for Bring It On. So it's probably not fair for me to talk about, to compare them like that. They're both wonderful and people should watch them both. Anyway, Wicked. I love Wicked. I have not read the book. It has been in my house for a long time because my wife has read it for a long time. And apparently I accidentally left reactions on my iPhone camera thing here. Oops. Turn that off. I didn't mean to thumbs up. Doing it live.
We're doing it.
So yeah,
anything
Wicked,
can happen.
We have the book. I haven't read the book. You know, I broadly like the Oz stuff. Actually, in general, my household has my wife has like almost every Oz book, if not every Oz book. I'm pretty sure she has, in some form or fashion, every Oz book from at least the original run of Oz stuff. And I have seen the musical, stage musical. It is one of the 2 stage musicals I have gone to see on Broadway in the 16 years I've lived here, because they're expensive and I'm not good about going out and doing stuff like that.
We got to get you to some musicals, though, because you appreciate a musical.
Well, we can talk about that a little bit more in a second. But I liked it as a stage musical. I was like, okay, I get why people... Like, I've seen 2 of them. I saw that and I saw Book of Mormon. And I was like, I like this. I see why I see why people are celebrating it. Like, cool. I get it. And then when the film was going to come out, I was like, you know, I don't know. They were also not advertising it like it was going to be a musical. They were hiding that it was going to be a musical, even though it's famously a musical. But saw it, you know, worried, and then saw it, and I was just like, no, this is incredible. Like, this is, like we were saying, I love musicals. I love film musicals specifically, which is a different thing. And that is a thing that I think comes up when a big musical like this comes out, which is people who love stage musicals will have complaints about film musicals that I fully disagree with. Like, I've seen people complain about how the music was broken up in the film. And I'm like, that's how films work.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that sounds kind of similar to how a lot of times if someone's a fan of a novel.
Yes.
They're like, but it's different than the thing I love. And it's like, yes, it is a different kind of media.
Adaptation should... It should take what the thing was and express the essence of it in the new format, or change it somehow. You know, some of the best adaptations are not remotely like the original. Blade Runner is almost nothing
completely
like
agree.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah, you know, I'm
very much enjoy the Marvel films. They are except for actually the overall way the MCU works and how it is increasingly confusing and continuity heavy. That's like the most accurate part of the adaptation. But individual stories are not remotely like the thing. But I love that because they're doing it for that. Anyway.
Agree.
Musicals. I love musicals as part of the film form because they are like everything great about film, all the little different pieces of it coming together. And when you do it well, and Jon M does it well, this film, In the Heights, I'm excited about I'm excited about the second part of this. If he does any others, he knows that all these pieces go together. And I do think that Wicked does it very, very well, and does it very well practically when in today's filmmaking world at that budget level, they might not have. Like, and I can rant about all sorts of stuff, but I really, really love it. It's not necessarily my favorite movie of 2024. It's not my favorite movie of 2024. It's probably not even that high on my list. I don't remember.
It did, yeah.
but like it's a movie where it's up for the Oscar for Best Picture, and if it wins, I won't be mad because I'm like, yes, that was an achievement of film. You achieved something with that. Good job. Anyway,
totally agree. Yeah, like Wicked, I don't even think made my top 10 for 2024. It was like close, you know.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot, but it didn't even make my top 10. Sorry, there were a lot of movies I liked last year, but
yeah, God,
I'm glad it's up for Oscars.
How dare you have a different opinion?
Well, how dare I like other films more than Wicked?
Exactly.
That's
it is my number 7. I just looked up my Letterboxd. It is my.
I can look it up later or not. I'm guessing it's like number 12 or something for me. Like
I might bump it up to 6. I think I like it more than Enora. Now that I've watched it way more times.
I like it more than Enora for sure, but that's another podcast, I guess. What do critics think?
What do critics think? How about I take the Wicked critics and
take the Wicked critics,
and you take the Wicked Letterboxd reviews, and then we'll swap it around for Stick It. How does that sound?
Great.
So
amazing.
Switching up to Metascore, if you've listened to us before, we usually do Rotten Tomatoes and then complain about Rotten Tomatoes. So now we're just going to do Metascore instead.
Because it's less bad.
So its Metascore is 73 based on 63 critic reviews, which is generally favorable. And it has a user score of 8.7, which is universal acclaim. I skimmed through the Metacritic page on Wicked and pulled a couple of, I basically pulled like an example of somebody who liked it and an example of somebody who didn't. So Kyle Smith of the Wall Street Journal said, the plot is so rich and eventful and the script so witty that the movie doesn't drag once the extended flashback starts. Moreover, every moment is eye candy. The screen bursts with whimsical costumes by Paul Tazewell, and sets Nathan Crowley is the production designer, and all of the important roles are impeccably cast. And then it's probably not Bilge. It's probably like Bilge.
Probably.
Of Vulture said, Wicked is as enchanting as it is exhausting.
So do I do letterboxes now?
So you can do the Letterboxd 5-star and 5-star reviews. So I just skimmed through. Actually, most of these were from like the last, like, I don't know. They were from like a week, maybe a week and a half ago. I didn't go that far. There's a lot of Letterboxd reviews.
I love these. I love the 5-star reviews.
They're very indicative of what all of the 5-star reviews were.
I have no doubt. And there are a lot of movies where,
especially the last 5-star one.
Oh, I know. If you sort on Letterboxd by like rating, and so the 5-star ones come first, as I assume you did for this, rather than like certain movies, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I wouldn't give this a 5-star rating if I were you, because you're kind of just painting a big target on your face, being like, I am a bad person and or should not have a Letterboxd
recording in
account
progress.
Because I don't know what. Were we not recording?
I forgot to record on the Zoom. Sorry.
So we're starting over.
No, we're live. Right. We have a bunch of it already.
Oh, it just wasn't recorded on Zoom.
Yeah, wait. Yeah. Sorry. Our backup recording on Zoom I forgot to turn on.
So it's got it. Understood. So, I understand what's happening now. So the audio may have just cool. Anyway, 5-star reviews, what I was going to say is a lot of people will give some extreme reviews, whether 5-star or 5-star on Letterboxd, that say a lot more about them than about the film. I'll just put it that way. Mm-hmm. And then go into these examples, such as this one by Joseph that I've actually been thinking about since I read it on here, and almost considered saying to you, Sean, let's not even read this review because I don't even want to give it the airtime. Like this perspective.
It's what a lot of them were. Like he just
I have no doubt.
Beats. But the best part.
Can I read it?
Yeah, please do.
Don't say the best part. I don't want to spoil it because I'm excited. Joseph on Letterboxd says, 5-star to Wicked. First sentence, as always, woke nonsense. What does Joseph mean as always, though? But like every movie is woke nonsense?
I believe that is what Joseph believes.
Why is he on Letterboxd then? If all movies, anyway, as always, woke nonsense. What a coincidence that the Black protagonist is the one discriminated against because of her skin color, parentheses, green. It's so obvious how they try to make it seem like Oz is a fraud. You know, totally going against the canon of Oz. I don't know if you've seen The Wizard of Oz, but that was about a really powerful guy who deserved all his power.
Yeah, that is who Oz is.
Instead of this woke nonsense about like pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Oh, whoops, was that from the first movie? Oops. Anyway, so they try to make it seem like Oz is a fraud and impose feminism on the movie. By the way, the music is great, but the script leaves a lot to be desired. Okay, Joseph.
I love that he loves the music. It fills me with joy that he's like, I mean, the music is great. Like, it's great. But
I haven't seen this, but I was talking with a friend earlier today about how apparently there's a video of Ben Shapiro like going off on Wicked, but that like he hates the movie Wicked, right? But the thing is, he clearly actually loves musical theater. Yeah. And so he's like geeking out about it and talking about how like, I mean, Cynthia Erivo's doing a great job. And my friend was saying how it was this really disorienting thing of some of Ben Shapiro's points actually were good and made sense because he clearly knows his musical theater. Life's full of surprises. Anyway,
doesn't surprise me at all.
Frick ones.
I think it's
FR3 Freckles. Okay, FR3CK1S.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. This is all caps, almost all caps. The last parenthetical is not, but fuck Glinda. She's such a fake friend. In what world are they the epitome of friendship? All she does is use her and manipulate her. Elphaba deserves so much better. Fuck this movie and fuck this story. Parentheses. The actors play the characters great, but when you're given trash story, there's nothing much to do.
They really seem to understand drama. Like I'm getting
I feel
firm understanding of drama.
Do you think this person's joking? Do you think this person just like watched Wicked and was like so in it and so like, oh, Glinda, oh, Elphaba, oh man, fuck this movie, it's so upsetting?
No. I think they genuinely don't understand that they got the point. I think they don't understand that they got the point.
Well, I agree. In what world are they the epitome of friendship? Because not the world of the movie.
No.
Anyway, also Angel Loves You Guys says haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
There.
That's a good one. That's a good review of it. I haven't seen it. I give it a 0.5 star.
Steph gave it 5 stars. Steph says, I just watched Act 1, but Elphaba should have stolen Glinda's man. Trust when I find Glinda will rip out her fake blonde eyebrows and stupid blonde hair and put it on an unfortunate bald Barbie owned by a 5-year-old with scissors.
It's kind of the opposite side of Freckles. Like there's a similar rage there. But they love the movie.
Yeah, this is just a take. This is just like, I wish this, and I can understand that.
Fair.
Altsing says, fun fact, I had to pee going into the movie and it was like 3 hours long and I watched all of that through because it was that good.
It's good.
There. And Marissa says it's one well done adaptation for an iconic musical. It was giving budget. Facts.
I like that thing.
It was giving budget. And for a change, like it looks good. It looks great.
Yeah, there's a lot of practical stuff in there. It still blows my mind that train is something that they built. The
train in the library, right?
Yes, the library. That library sequence.
just watched it last night, so it's a little fresh in my mind. Yeah, the production design, like honestly, Wicked is one of those movies I feel delight while watching, because it's just like all of these decisions, just going with the visuals for right now, in terms of like production design, costume design, all the design stuff is so thoughtful, detailed, loving, fun, original. Like, I mean, like, I enjoyed Conclave or whatever, but it's up for best costumes, and it's like, yeah, I know what the Pope wears. They're all wearing the same thing. I'm not saying costume department didn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, they did a great job. The costumes look great, but like, how?
That seems like we know that they're not going to get anything, so maybe we should nominate them for, or you know, likely. We're pretty sure that like these other popular things are going to win. So
likely.
And I still need to watch that one, but
should I go into Stick It for
tell us about
Metacritic?
What the critics are.
What the critics are. The critics are
where them critics are.
Where them critics are is Metascore 53 based on 25 critic reviews of Stick It, which is considered mixed or average, not universal acclaim for Stick It, and but it does have a user score of 6.9. Nice. Which is generally favorable. In terms of quotes from critics, in the New York Times, Nathan Lee wrote that Stick It is a spry teenage comedy that gets everything right. Stick It takes the usual batch of underdogs, dirtbags, mean girls, and bimbos, rude, and sends them somersaulting through happy cliches and unexpected invention. I'd phrase it differently, but fair. And then Kevin Crust, way to be named, dude. Like,
I'm not his mom.
Kevin Crust, who I don't think is a crust punk, because if he was that, then all right. But no, he's just crusty. Like, because Kevin Crust is like, says,
yeah, now stop attacking this poor man.
Kevin Crust.
This was 20 years ago.
Well, he said, the film strives for some type of a girl empowerment message that equates trading one type of conformity for another with self-determination. What? But muffs, interesting choice of words, the dismount and stumbles on the landing. In other words, it fails to stick it.
He was being clever.
Kevin Crust.
So I'll do some of these Letterboxd reviews. We got half stars from I Watch Hard. We have pretty shifty acting, a real Sunday hungover as shit type of flick. Which, in fairness, like if I still got hungover, it would be a good one for that. Like, okay, let's
totally.
watch this.
It's what when I was a kid, I would have called it a great, like, sick day movie. Like, if I was sick and my mom came home from Video Ithaca with Stick It, it didn't come out till 2006, so that wasn't happening, but I would have been like, this is perfect. You know, it's not too taxing. It's super entertaining. It's very colorful. It doesn't make you work that hard, but it's also not like it's a smart movie. It just doesn't make you work that hard.
Yeah, exactly. And then Matt K.E. said, has some cool shots. Definitely reminds me of early 2000s films. Likely because it is an early 2000s film. Matt K.E. And then Pepper4NN, which I assume is Pepper Ann, which I believe was popular with the kids just slightly younger than me. Corny, and I only saw half, but devil horns, emoji with the tongue sticking out, devil horns, and Nicole and I were both making those faces if you're listening to this later and not watching us live on the YouTubes.
So just go on YouTube so you don't miss that.
But the devil horns and the tongue sticking out, and Blink 182 plays in the background. So not only does Pepper Ann not have great taste, but Pepper Ann also doesn't have great taste. So the 5-star reviews, the connoisseurs of film that we're encountering, we have XOXO Mojito, which is a good username. That's a good username. Watching this at your peak of gymnastics does things to you. This movie shaped me as a person by giving me 2 things. 1, superiority complex. 2, lesbianism. And that was a very common 5-star comment about this film. And then Aiden Service said, Weiwei's dance routine is peak cinema. Scorsese, calling him that now. Scorsese wouldn't dare. Scorsese wouldn't either.
When Scorsese came out of your mouth, that was so surprising. Excellent point. That is a great moment in the film. That is a great point. I love Weiwei's dance routine. It's really, because she does it to music with lyrics, and that's an automatic deduction. Because the judges have sticks up their asses. Anyway,
judges have stick it
up the judge's ass.
What? Maya A said, I already know I'm gay, but goddamn, watching this movie really reminds me of that fact. And again, most of the 5-star reviews were, this made me a lesbian. And I'm not saying that this made me a lesbian, because I'm not. I'm a cis man.
I was already half a lesbian.
So
maybe Stick It did that to me before I saw the movie.
It's possible.
It knew. Stick It has always been.
It exists from a time before time, but you know what doesn't, Nicole?
What's that? Tell me.
Our sponsor, because now it's time for a word from our sponsor. Nicole, can you let us know who is today's sponsor?
Well, Sean, it looks like today's sponsor is Siobhan's She-Vans.
It is indeed. And you can't see it, but there's a lovely little graphic up there for you.
I can't see it?
You can't, well, if you go to YouTube, maybe.
I can't wait. Oh, yeah. Let me scroll up on YouTube. Oh, this is terrible. What's happening? I guess I should be doing an ad and not...
For Siobhan's.
Oh, yeah, I see it. So, sometimes when you need a She-Van and it's really important to you to honor your Irish heritage.
Often.
I know you know what I'm talking about, Sean.
I know exactly.
I'm not Irish, so I don't know, but you know. And I think you have a feeling that, I mean, I guess it's just obvious that if you're going for a van, you're going to go for a She-Van, because why wouldn't you? Apparently, this is an option we have I wasn't aware of, and now I'm going to avail myself of it as soon as I learn how to drive, because I can't do that. But you can. I think I've even driven in a van with you before, Sean.
Yes.
You've driven a van.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might be interested in Siobhan's She-Vans, because they're from Siobhan, and you can trust her because she's clearly Irish, right? Clearly. Is there anybody named Siobhan who's not Irish?
I mean, probably people are stealing all kinds of stuff from us.
Oh, shit. I don't know if I can do this ad if Siobhan is just like British or something and just stole that name and then just painted her She-Van green, pretending like it's the look of the Irish.
I mean,
this may be a first.
You gotta, for the almighty commerce. You just gotta.
You're right.
You just gotta. You gotta sell out. Sell out, Nicole. Sell out.
So it's the United Kingdom, and so we all have to stick together. And it's really beautiful when colonizers steal the culture of the people that they colonized and then use it to sell tacky she vans. So you should just go get them. You should just go get them. All of the she vans from fucking Siobhan. Fake ass Irish bitch. Excuse my language, but I just feel this strongly. But, you know, listeners can get 30% off with code TCM. Just go into Siobhan Shivans on Route 13. You know where it is.
No,
it's next to Bennigan's.
Oh. Right.
Unless you have anything to add, this one really threw me. I don't know what a Shivan is.
Well, do you know what a Shira is?
I know Shira, Princess of Power.
I assumed it was related.
Great. And I think we're back.
And that was our sponsor.
And that, Sean, is today's sponsor. We've learned
things.
Hey, I kept it under 5 minutes, I'm sure.
I have no idea. I wasn't keeping.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's have a discussion about what these films have in common.
What do these films reflect about one another?
Well, they are both films about teenage girls trying to organize their peers against injustices.
It's true. So for a while now, we've wanted to talk about Stick It. You specifically wanted to talk about the effectiveness of the organizing. Can you give us just some context for what is the because you're so well versed in the film, and it's not covered in that synopsis. What happens?
So basically, in the world of Stick It, Haley helps bring her teammates together to rise up against their common enemy of the repressive judges who are judging in ways that are unfair and dated and misogynistic and all sorts of other stuff. Everybody's going to compete in these tournaments where a lot of times excellence is underappreciated. Like excellence, innovation, all of that is kind of less the thing than just being really nice and dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's and making sure your bra strap doesn't stick out and making sure you're doing all the stuff that judges like not having any of that hip hop music or anything with lyrics and, being very ladylike and following all of these super archaic and sexist rules, basically, right? So for Haley and her teammates, both on her team and also the girls on the other teams as well, there's stakes for everybody involved. And what they end up deciding to do is direct action. Like they basically assert their power by deciding who should win each routine amongst themselves and then using the unfair rules against the judges. So for example, spoilers for Stick It at nationals at the end, one girl's routine, you can see her bra strap a little bit. And so the judges deduct points, even though she did the most amazing routine that everybody was inspired by and in awe of. So then, because the other girls thought that was unfair, when they went up to compete, they would show their bra strap or whatever. They would not do the routine at all. They would scratch, they would go up, they would basically do a motion of some sort, and then hold up their arms like that's the end and walk away. So the judges would have to give them a 0. Mm-hmm. So they basically, by all coming together, would all intentionally scratch their routines and use the judges' stupid rules against the judges so that they could choose who they thought deserved to win themselves. Everybody shares in that. And even at the end, the girl who was set up as the rival to Haley, our protagonist, who's blonde and the one, maybe that one critic was calling a bimbo, I guess. Like even she like becomes a friend and joins in and takes risk. Everybody's taking risk. Everybody's taking reward. They're doing it collectively, and they figure out what the weakness is in this unfair system that they can exploit to, you know, basically remove the judges from their position of power because there's nothing they can do about it. And I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time because, as Sean has heard me complain about a lot, I feel there is a conspiracy to not depict anything of remotely realistic. I don't know how realistic this is, but you could do this. Like, this does make sense of depicting any kind of like organizing. I feel like people generally do not know how political change happens. They think an important leader gives a big speech and then there's a big march and then like change or something.
Well, I think Wicked ends up being a good pairing for this, and why I thought of it, because it is the ineffective other side of it, but I do think that it shows the ineffectiveness because, so for context, what we're talking about with Wicked, again, it's not in that synopsis, and spoiling it, we have to talk about these movies. We're going to spoil them. And if you haven't seen Wicked, I'm sorry.
Go watch Wicked and then come back.
Listening, and you probably aren't listening anyway. So anyway, the part of Wicked we're talking about isn't even like the plot around her like having powers and being pals with Glinda and all that. It's the more or less the subplot that ends up becoming the most important part of the movie, that gets her cast out, which is that Elphaba notices that animals are being persecuted. Animals are being persecuted in Oz, and she, as somebody who is an outsider, you know, relates to it. And she relates to one of her professors and talks to them and is aware that there is fear amongst the animals and that there is concerns because things like the animals are losing the ability to talk, and because otherwise in Oz they were all able to talk before. And there's a lot of like subtle pieces, not so subtle, but things that I didn't necessarily notice the first time. Like at the university, when the seal gets cracked, when her powers are revealed in front of everybody, you see under the seal they have with the current founders or the current staff, there's a staff of almost entirely animals that is being represented under that steel in
Very
metal thing.
Very much like that scene in another film we've talked about on this show, Thor Ragnarok.
Exactly.
Look at
very
these
similar
lies.
moment. But so she has concerns about it, and she does raise them with other people, but her way of doing it is different. And what happens ultimately that is also different from Stick It is she doesn't have an effective ally to bring people in. So, and we can kind of get into the ally she does have a little bit more. Well, she has two. One is more highlighted in this than the other. But basically, she can't get that change because she's alone. And because instead of sort of bringing people together for mutual benefit and mutual sacrifice, equal across the board, she's just sort of yelling at everybody that we should all care about this. And she's not wrong. And some people do notice and do take note, specifically Fiyero, who is the love interest for both her and Galinda, who pretends not to be very thoughtful, but as you get to know him in the film, it seems like he's got more going on and he is actually probably doing something. But ultimately, like, the ineffectiveness of her mission, of her cause, is her solitude in it, which is not necessarily entirely her fault, but that is kind of where it's at. And then I think that contrasts well with what happens in Stick It, which is very much we're a team, we're in this together. And in some ways, Stick It, it's almost easier for them, maybe, because, well, that's one of us that got hurt. So it's, it's similar but different. It's a little hard. Like Elphaba is a little bit closer to where the animals are because she's an outsider. So that makes sense for her.
It's true. I think also, I mean, the stakes are also just higher in Wicked.
Yes.
Period. The stakes are just a lot higher in Wicked, right? Like Wicked is a like fascism metaphor, and I think a really good one.
Yeah.
Right? Like they make this very explicit, and I'm glad, because this is not, as we talked about a lot on our last episode, it's not always the time for subtlety these days, and some people clearly are still not getting it. So you have like you have Oz, right, who is a fascist leader, and he's got Madame Mortimer, and he's got his people. They are all pretending much. This has nothing to do with a conversation we were having off mic before the show, Sean, about people who pretend to have skills they don't have.
No,
and
not
run
at
the
all.
world.
That's not exactly the same thing as
That we were just talking about. Yeah, like, which makes that one review so fucking funny about like they try to make Oz be a fraud, and I'm like, that's the story.
That's always been the story. Like
that's always been the
he's
story.
He's a more lovable like fraud in like the original, but he's lying.
Like that's a big part of what that story is about. That's a big part of the moral, to the degree there is one, of the Wizard of Oz, is like there's going to be a man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And he's going to say, oh, don't pay attention to me. And he's going to have a big fake animatronic head that he's going to pretend is real. Like, and I mean, this has played out.
Yeah.
Time and time again. But so anyway, like in Wicked, they're organizing against fascism in Oz. They're organizing, or Elphaba is not organizing. Elphaba is ranting and being upset about oppressed Ozians who are now being scapegoated and silenced.
Yes.
As we are seeing happening to various scapegoats in the United States right now, where people are losing jobs, right? Like whole topics being censored, not just in schools anymore. I mean, like I won't go down this road too much, but the amount of government censorship happening right now, very quickly. I was just saying to my partner, other Sean, last night, I'm like, I'm really glad they got all those fucking Harry Potter movies made and like done, so that now for this moment, like the big family, high budget, tentpole blockbuster, fanciful fantasy franchise is this, which is a lot more useful for our time.
Yeah.
Than the fucking Harry Potter. Like, well, don't get me started. But
no, but like I think that is a very fair comparison, because they're the same kind of movie. There's magic, it's a school, and it's it's very fairy tale creatures, but
big evil villain that everybody needs,
and a fascist villain. But the problem is that like the significant difference between Wicked and Harry Potter is the hero of Harry Potter doesn't have as much of a problem with, because it's already like the Wizard Society is already is already kind of fashy, and
Wizard
Voldemort
Society is totally
worse.
fashy.
Yeah, no, they have slaves, they have all that stuff. And
yeah, it's like trading one kind of fascism for another in Harry Potter. He grows up to be a cop.
Yeah, and the only person who calls out a lot of it is the annoying girl
who gets made fun of. Fucking
so like
people who won't be named,
because Wicked is not that. Like the hero is the one who is the voice who is not being heard about what the problem is, and she is special. She's a special child. She's a a predestined kid, whatever, in this, as is probably too often the case in a lot of things.
Sure.
But in that sense, like they're similar, but it is a better narrative for this. I think it should be an instructive narrative for people about what not to do, which is you don't just yell at everybody that this is wrong and then go appeal to leadership and ask them, well, can you fix this? And then you're going to discover they're the ones doing it, right?
That's the thing. Ultimately, I just thought of this. You could argue that Elphaba's fatal mistake in Wicked is the fact that she let herself trust Madame Morrible and was like, oh, even though she hadn't seen any evidence that Madame Morrible had any magical powers, she and I feel for Elphaba, like she needed an ally so bad. When Madame Morrible, an event early in the film happens where Elphaba gets upset because somebody's being fucked up to her sister Nessa and like pushing Nessa in her wheelchair, even though Nessa's like, no, don't fucking physically move my body. What the fuck? That's not helpful, which is a thing that apparently people in wheelchairs deal with a lot, of people being like, oh, I'll just move you. A lot of people deserve to be smacked.
Yes. And also for that reason.
So Elphaba gets upset, has a big magic catastrophe, and then Madame Morrible is like, and I did that to teach you to expect the unexpected. And in the moment, Elphaba's like, oh, good, I didn't get in trouble. She's covering for me. She gets that we're the same. We've both got the special magic powers. And she needs that so badly that she just believes it and ultimately, goes to Madame Morrible and trusts in her. Madame Morrible and Oz want her to read this fucked up spell to turn monkeys into flying monkeys, lie to her about what it is. They're like, oh, this monkey is in pain. You got to read this spell to free him. She does, very quickly is like, wait a second. You all lied to me. And then it's, her and Glinda and who's showdown, etc. But none of this is to criticize Elphaba. She's supposed to be a teenage girl. She's doing her best. However, to your point, I feel like a lot of times in movies, the way change happens is one person is like, why not me be the leader? I am leading, and then people just follow and everything works out. And that's not how anything happens. Like, that is not how change happens. So I kind of love the fact, I mean, I hate that it doesn't work in Wicked. I wish it worked. It makes me upset. We
still got part 2 to find out.
Yeah, and I'm sure this is going to end up great based on what happens in other Oz stories.
Or the beginning of the movie, because the rest of the movie is a flashback.
But what if it was like, psych?
I don't remember how the stage play goes, and I keep wanting to look it up and going like, no, I'll wait until part 2. Even though, you know some of the things, right? Like, we haven't really talked about it other than doing the podcast, but you kind of know who, like, oh, that character is going to end up being that guy in Wizard of Oz, and that character is going to be that guy, half of which I didn't realize, and like some of which I didn't quite pick up on until the second time I watched it, or until just later after the first time. It's like, oh wait, that guy, he did this thing, and that's why. Which actually is a thing that I really like about the film, is that all of those things are mostly tiny moments and small movements that happen, that if you're familiar, you're like, wait a second. But it's no, like, the guy who's going to become the Scarecrow doesn't like fall into a bunch of hay and it's stuffed in his jacket or something, and suddenly it looks like he's stuffed with hay, and then they wink at the camera. It's like a bunch of things.
And he's like, if I only had a brain, exactly. Am I right?
Which he does do without saying that.
But
he has a whole ass song.
Anyway. One thing I want to say about Stick It, in contrast to Wicked, is not Wicked the Ewok. Wicked. I should enunciate. And I completely lost my train of thought. Oh, that's right. Haley and Stick It. You know what she reminds me of? Union organizer.
Yes.
because she's just kind of like pulling people aside, you know. She's just fucking talking to people. And that is how you actually, and look, I'm not an organizer. I am semi-face blind and have trouble remembering who people are, which makes me a very poor organizer, because that's kind of like the whole game. But, you know, I help with organizing efforts in various ways sometimes. And like, that's what you do. You build relationships, you talk to people, you establish what the common needs are. You establish, all right, what do we have in common? Where do our complaints overlap? Where does this come together? How do we leverage the power that we have collectively to get our needs met, right? And like Elphaba doesn't do any of that. She's supposed to be a teenage girl who's been treated badly by her family and shit. It's not like you can fault her for that. But that's all the more reason why when I saw Stick It, I was like, what the fuck? This girl actually is doing shit that makes sense to achieve her goals. And then she does. And it's actually a really good basic model for people that like, yeah, if there's injustice at your workplace, go talk to your coworkers and see what they're upset about. Ask them, do some one-to-ones.
One of the other things that she ultimately does, like ultimately happens, that is reflective of Wicked and is more effective in this case, is she has, you know, there's I forget the character's name, the dumb girl who's kind of the queen bee before she shows up.
I'm blanking too, but I know. But obviously
they become pals, sort of like before the organizing, like, which is also kind of something that happens in Wicked. But like the way that happens, like she kind of brings that girl in, and because they're rivals, they're at each other, and then they kind of find that middle ground, and then it helps a lot that girl then follows suit with her when the organizing happens, because then there's no split for people to go, right? There's no like, well, she's not doing it, like, because that happened, because it's like taking the person who is who, you know, you have a conflict with, and if you don't have, if they still had that conflict, then the organizing probably wouldn't have it. Like, it wouldn't have happened. People wouldn't have followed suit.
It's an alliance.
And
or
it wasn't
coalition,
even for this
perhaps.
purpose. Like, it was kind of the preamble of, even before that, we are in stuff together. We're all here together. There's, well before they had something specific they were protesting, that she was building solidarity, right? Like, she's like, all this other stuff is bullshit anyway. Like, why are you following these other rules? And then they have an action. Like, which is probably a very instructive thing about Stick It, is build solidarity before you need to have an action. Like, you're gonna need to do it.
Yeah, that's the groundwork you need to do. It's like, people you don't get a billion people showing up in Washington or something from a bunch of different groups, because, and I mean, you know, this is something that makes me upset these days when we have social media, which used to be really useful for organizing things, and now is occasionally useful for organizing things. But you have a lot of people who don't know how organizing works, which again, I believe is by design. I think there are a lot of people who don't want people in the United States to have any idea how organizing works. That's kind of a concerted, it's a whole thing. But the fuck was my point? I just completely lost my train of thought, Sean.
I'll think about that. I might, to just wrap up what I was saying about, like, there's a reflective relationship in Wicked, which is the main relationship in Wicked, which is the Elphaba and Galinda thing. And the problem is that Elphaba can't necessarily bring Galinda in, and Galinda brings Elphaba partly into her world. And the problem ends up being Galinda and her inability to give up what she has. And she knows very much what her power is, and there's a very important scene where she basically makes Elphaba popular the dance scene, which is a very good scene. There's even like some, I noticed just rewatching it for the podcast that there's a lighting cue when she kind of steps onto the dance floor and it's like, no, we're going to be together, where there's green light on her face. So it's like, there's like little things like that. Like it's, oh, we're coming together. She knows that she can use the power that she has as a popular person, as a beloved person, that even though, you know, Bo and Yang and the blonde girl were like, oh, what are you doing? You can't do this. This, you know, this isn't good. She's like, no, I'm going to risk nothing really. And then she and Elphaba are pals and everybody's more friendly towards Elphaba. She can do that. So then it's, and she kind of sees a little, to a point, where Elphaba's coming from. Like, she's not that dumb. She gets it. She understands that there is a purpose, like, oh, I should care about this. And she does the you know, she becomes the Paul Bettany character. We talked about Dogville last time. She's like the Paul Bettany character. She's the fake ally in that, which she's like, oh, I'll change my name because of how he said it. No stakes, like, you know,
barely changing her name.
Your profile picture on your thing, like
making it a black square.
Okay, cool. But then when the moment comes and it's like, come with me, join me, I can understand why she doesn't. Like, I totally understand, like, that's scary. Like, it's sure. Relatable. However, she just made it guaranteed that Elphaba can be villainized. Like,
yeah, if she had gone with,
harder to do.
Because that's solidarity. That's the
exactly.
thing. And if you've ever, without getting into like off topic, you know, memory lane, if you've ever actually put yourself in a position where you are giving something real up, or you are actually putting yourself in harm's way in order to be in solidarity with somebody else, because you know that if they have to deal with the both of you, or the 20 of you, or the 100 of you, or the 420 of you, or whatever it is, that's going to work better than one person being like, this is unjust. Because if you have to deal with the group, that's where your power lies. And so, like, you know, that's part of why I get why she didn't do it, but it's also like, kind of should have just done it. You could always leave later.
Yeah. No, and I agree with that. And I think that's really what like, I mean, that's the terrible thing that she does, which is like, it would be another thing if she wasn't aware of the power she had, but she, like, they give us that scene where she very, very clearly understands the power that she has.
Knows.
She has a whole song about it.
I mean, it's basic. Exactly. And it's like, Elphaba's got magic, Glinda's got popularity, and that is her magic, you know, that she can sprinkle that onto other people.
Yeah.
It's not about the fucking flower she put behind Elphaba's ear.
No.
It's about her being like, I approve. It's about her co-signing Elphaba. That's why.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And similarly, like Bo and Yang and the blonde girl, whose name I unfortunately can't remember, even though she's a good actress who's been in a few things and I always really like her. They're looking up to Glinda. Glinda's the queen bee in that little friendship.
Yeah.
They're like her little, you know,
clingers.
Yes men. Yeah. So of course, in the dance scene, when they're like, what are you doing? It lets Glinda feel like feel pretty good about herself, but she, like you said, she's not risking anything. You know what? You know who Glinda reminded me of when I rewatched?
Who's that?
Both like Emma in any version of the story, Emma, or also Cher Horowitz in Clueless.
Yes.
Like, she reminds me a lot of that type, but it's kind of like, whereas Clueless and Emma are about like finding that character lovable and she means well, and even if she makes mistakes and causes problems, like, she's the protagonist, you know. And this is kind of like, well, what if it wasn't just a nice story about like getting people boyfriends and stuff, but what if she actually really had to, like, would Cher Horowitz stick her neck out that far? Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
But that also speaks to why, you know, I don't think Glinda's hateful. Maybe in part 2, maybe at the very end of the movie in a way, but I find her flawed and likable. You know, she reminded me so much of Cher Horowitz. Like, she means well, but she's also a pretty selfish person.
Yeah.
Those two things can coexist.
Yes. I mean, often does. People like, I mean well, but you mean well, but you are only self-interested.
And also all of us like have moments like that, you know, like you can be like the best person in the world and there are still going to be moments where you mean well, but your self-interest is going to like win out and you're going to do something for yourself that hurts somebody else. Like that is human.
And I think, and I would say, like, as you said, that you're not really an organizer, but I think we have both been involved in, which we didn't talk about yet, and we don't want to talk too much longer, but we've both been involved in organizing around issues and political issues and just social issues. I haven't done it very much for a long time at this point, but I
did it in Alaska.
I did in Alaska. It's different. I will kind of wave that around and be like, I did it in
a red
state.
As you should, honestly.
But we also, one of the things I do, and we've talked about this before, but I do like to highlight, is we both also done it on different, not different political or social sides of it. We agree on issues broadly, but like,
wouldn't it be funny though if we didn't?
It would be funny. But no, on different sides of like how you do it. Like mine was much more like mainstream official channels type stuff, like meetings and boardrooms and stuff like that, in nonprofits and in the Democratic Party, which is one of the reasons why I'm extremely critical of the Democratic Party, not because I'm an outsider going like, why don't you guys do stuff? Because I know exactly why they don't do stuff. And because every criticism of them being weak and afraid is absolutely correct, because I remember those conversations and being like, why are you guys like this? No, I've been thinking about that pretty explicitly and how they lose elections, like that they shouldn't. We shouldn't have Sarah Palin, but the Alaska Democratic Party handed it to her. Like, she won because she primaried the governor at that time, Frank Murkowski, who was wildly corrupt and unpopular. Like, wildly corrupt and unpopular. And then they put up their previous governor, the previous Democratic governor, because technically he could run for a third term. You just couldn't have 3 consecutive terms. So they were like, let's go back to that well, after his lieutenant governor had lost in the previous election. And it's like, I remember even at the time, because I knew I wasn't involved directly anymore then, but this was almost 20 years ago now, but I do remember going like, why are you running him again? Don't you have a new candidate? Don't you have something new? And the Democratic Party at large keep doing it. Anyway, that's
has nothing to do with any recent elections.
Nothing to do with
nothing
any
like
recent
that
elections.
happened recently.
It is the same thing that they keep doing. But point being, like, when we talk about organizing, when we talk about this stuff, like, you still do on the ground stuff with people. I'm less involved with that because Sean gets angry and it's not constructive. So I think we are coming from perspective of like, oh, this is a good example of working with people, of like, get people to work together on something that they have a stake in, which is that's the only thing that you're really going to get people to do something about. And if you're asking them to give up something, you also have to be giving up something, and they also have to maybe not necessarily gain something, but like there has to be some, like there's a give and take.
What's the buy-in?
Yeah. It's like, you're going to win this because we're all going to decide. Like, that's what happens in Stick It, right? Like, you're going to win this competition because we're all going to get one. We're going to control this and just give each of us one, instead of letting them decide. And that is the give and take. And everybody and I think most importantly, the leader gives it up first.
Yeah, Haley is the first person to scratch intention to go up and just blow her routine. And she does it in part to prove, because I'm forgetting the exact quotes and stuff, but she has to show, like, she has to be the first person to give it up, because it's not fair to ask it's kind of like when we were on a certain shoot the other day, and a lot of people canceled last minute, and I didn't want to get on camera, but I felt like I had to.
Yes.
Because I was the director. And so if someone's going to take one for the team, it needs to start with the director. If you've got a room full of people who are like, I don't want to be on camera, and none of us want to be on camera, but we all kind of know someone needs to, like, I'm like, okay, because that's what you do, because it would be ridiculous for me to ask somebody else to do something they were uncomfortable with that I was also uncomfortable with. If we're all uncomfortable, the person doing the ask needs to take it for the team.
Needs to step up and do it.
Yeah.
Which is definitely what Haley does, which is a failing that happens a lot. And I think attempts at organizing, there's a lot of asking other people to do things.
Yeah.
But there's no like, well, people, and it's not like it has to be like a quid pro quo or a give or take or anything, but like when you ask people to do things or you ask people to give up things, you have to give them a context of like what the benefit is, or like, and not just like the philosophical or conceptual, because like, yes, you need that. That's great. But we also need to understand the tangible, because if I'm giving up something tangible, not that I need something tangible in return, but like there's something very instructive about this,
There's good faith. There's good faith exhibited in Stick It. Haley could have scratched, and it is possible that nobody would have followed her lead, and she just would have gotten a 0.
Yes.
And she just would have humiliated herself again. We didn't even go into her whole long saga and backstory of blowing it at nationals because she has bad parents, basically. But like, she took that risk, and it could have all fallen down for her. It ended up paying off, but it doesn't always pay off. Sometimes we take risks and we fall on our faces, or we say like, hey, catch me, and people don't. And then you're like, all right, I got it. This is a room full of people who are not going to catch me. So I'm going to go do some one-to-ones in a different room.
Yeah.
Like,
it's going to be, anyway, the point being that like, if you're asking other people to risk, you have to risk first. And you have to recognize the significance of asking people to risk something, and make it worth people's while.
Yeah.
Like,
to bring it, I remembered what I was going to say before, which is kind of relevant, which is the thing I complain about all the time, which is like, people are like, man, there's all these problems. Someone should be doing something about this, rather than me doing the research to see who is doing something about this, who I might be able to plug into. I'm going to go on Instagram and like say, hey, let's have a general strike tomorrow. Or, hey, let's boycott this random brand. And I'm not going to look at what other brands are being boycotted by organized efforts around this same issue first. I'm just going to declare it. And that's how the internet works. It just takes one person having a good idea, and then everybody follows, and then things get better. And it's like, no, I mean, I remember when I worked at JFREG, where I wasn't an organizer, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, for anyone who's not in New York or is not familiar with that group. I was the office manager. Mm-hmm. I wasn't an organizer, but everybody who was on staff there would do some organizing, and you would have to do one-to-ones with members, right? And so like, and I'm glad I got that training back in my 20s and stuff, of just like setting up meetings with different JFREG members just to like ask them their story. Mm-hmm. Just to be like, tell me about you. what, you know, what are you thinking about? What are your needs? What are your concerns? What do you think about what the org's doing? What would you like to see us do? Right? And just fucking listen.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing those all the time, because you don't organize people without talking to them. You don't like put out a call and everyone just shows up. Like, sure, sometimes, but that happens because like an organization has been working for a long time and has developed a reputation and has a mailing list. So if they put out a call to their mailing list who has bought in, people will show up. Yeah. But that only happens because a bunch of one-to-ones happened before. Like, well, and there's no skipping steps.
The similar, just to kind of what you're saying about you got to talk to people. One of the things that I'm reminded of is and you have to listen to people.
And look, I hate talking to people and listening to people a lot of the time. I get why it's hard.
But I distinctly remember when I was a campaign manager a million years ago, after the election, talking to my candidate, who we won, not by a lot, but we won. And she was great. She was great about door knocking, talking to people, listening to people in the neighborhood. And apparently, like, there was one guy she kind of saw. I think he lived in her neighborhood, and he saw her outside after the election. And he said afterwards, he's like, yeah, you know, and he was like hardcore Republican. She's a Democrat. He said, you know, I actually did end up voting for you because, you know, we talked, and like, you know, you seem like I can't remember exactly what he said, but like, you seem like the right person. And you know, this is Alaska where I grew up. It's a very red state. There's not a whole lot of that sort of thing that's ever going to happen, is people going like, yeah, no, I'm just going to like cross the lines in that direction anyway. But it was because she would go and she would talk to people. And more importantly, she would listen to what their concerns were. She had, you know, and I keep talking to you about like when I got training for that. There's a clip from Bull Durham about talking to the media, which is about staying on message, which is just about like have your talking points and stick to them, which is what you do. You have your talking points and stick to them, and then you listen to people. And a lot of people don't have that second part, because you also then just talk to people. You don't promise them anything. You just listen and you commiserate and you treat them like a human being. And that's what she was great at. And that's what some other people weren't. And I'm not even thinking of anybody specific, but like the people who were winning and the people who were doing well. And I saw, like, because we had a shared office space, like we were all renting pieces of a shared, of a space. Like I saw, like, the ones who did well listened to people and knew their talking points, and they were human. Like, they could stay on message, but they could also just be like, yeah, no, tell me about like what your problems are. And I think on all sides of it, like, it's always about that. It's always about the give and take, which is ultimately, just to kind of bring it back around, what is successful about Stick It and what is not successful, or what is successful in the organizing and Stick It and not successful in the organizing and Wicked. And we should probably wrap up. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I totally did. And I kind of lost my train of thought yet again. Oh, people want to be heard. Mm-hmm. This is like one of these really basic things that is so useful to keep in mind in so many different situations. If you're trying to de-escalate a situation, if you're trying to get somebody on your side, certainly if you're trying to get somebody to like take action and do a thing, people want to be heard. A lot of times you just need to practice active listening a little bit, and people can get through whatever it is that they need to get through. Because I think a lot of us, we all know what it fucking feels like to feel unheard. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are unheard a lot of the time. It's shitty. Similarly, if somebody just demonstrates that they're fucking really listening to you, that goes a very long way. And it's something that is happening Not nearly enough. And Sean, I also thank you for mentioning that, because your Bull Durham speech, not your Bull Durham speech, the Bull Durham thing that you've referenced a lot, I think is kind of like your version of my takeaway from the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, right? Which is like, I think about that all the time, which is, you know, find your opponent's weakness, stay on message, don't get distracted by all the like straw men and stuff. However, there's no part of that where Kendrick really listened to Drake.
He didn't need to.
He didn't need to in that situation, but you did. I had thought really that like Kendrick versus Drake taught me everything I needed to know about arguing and organizing, period. And there's one other part. And what a great note to end on.
So
listen.
Yeah, listen. We should all be listening.
Just listen.
Is there anything that we should tell people about as we wrap up here before we send them off into the end credits that gives them all the blah, 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 subscribe and tells them links and shit?
I mean, thank you to our 5 viewers right now.
We have 5 concurrent viewers.
Apparently.
One of them's probably me with the YouTube open in the background, but hey, I'm glad people are here. That's cool.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Check out our Patreon. There's a lot of free stuff there and more coming.
Yeah, there's a link down there for it. There's stuff about this. You know, also we sometimes solicit people on the Patreon to tell us like what we should do next. Like sometimes, like they made me watch Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm still mad.
And they
that.
made me watch Schindler's List.
That's true. They made us do that.
We did that.
So, but we do have some ideas from possible episodes. We haven't decided what's coming up next yet, but it could be something like, I don't know, Reanimator and all that jazz, or it could be maybe a Fast and Furious movie into Tane.
What if we did Cool as Ice and West Side Story?
That's possible. What if we did Batman and Robin?
And anything,
but maybe Passages. So I think there was, because unfortunately since our last episode we did lose David Lynch, which is very sad. And we've talked about it a bit. You know, maybe we do Mulholland Drive and Hellraiser.
What a concept.
What a concept. So we have a couple of ideas that are coming up. The next episode should be towards the end of March. I think these are going to continue to be roughly monthly, which has a lot to do with our schedules right now. Who knows? Maybe we'll do them more often. Like, we don't have to commit to anything. Like,
maybe if I quit my unpaid part-time, not organizing job.
Well, I'm literally not in the country for 2 weeks. So in March. So I am off to hunt down Siobhan's. No.
Siobhan's. You gotta find the original source of the Shivans.
Exactly, the Siobhan's Shivans.
Send me some photos if you can get close enough for a clear picture.
But thank you for sticking with us. We will eventually learn how to stick to that new time limit of an hour. I think we just need to tweak some of our setup there and just get to the meat sooner.
We are again shorter. This is still a shorter episode than a single fucking episode of the show in the old format.
It's true. We are getting to the point a lot faster. Of course, people would get a cut down version. Not that we're doing that now.
But we're not doing that because that took a real long time.
It took way too long.
It took way too long.
Anyway,
thank you all
for joining us.
Watch Wicked and Stick It. Wait,
watch Wicked and
one
Stick
more
It.
time.
Subscribe.
Wait, hold up.
What?
Wicked and Stick It.
That's great. I would try to join you, except for I can't sing for shit.
I think I can do better.
You can do better? Go for it.
I can do better. Wicked and Stick It.
That was different. People can subscribe here, and you can, there will be another live soon. There's other stuff we're doing. If you prefer audio, or if you're listening to this on audio, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform of choice.
Leave us a review.
Yes, leave us reviews.
Nobody's done that in a while.
Everywhere. Leave comments, leave messages, share it with people, tell people to listen.
Just yell.
Argue with us.
Yell the celluloid mirror out the window. And yeah, we like to argue. You can tell us why we're wrong.
Leave
like
us
I always say to my
and
students.
Argue with us. That's great. All right. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye. The Celluloid Mirror is a production of 4 Mile Circus and is hosted by Sean Mannion and Nicole Solomon. Learn more at 4milecircus.com. To keep up with the next episode, make sure to subscribe and click that button to get reminders. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/4milecircus. All the links are below. Our opening and closing music is Twisted by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his music at incompetech.com.
I ended up in that hall of mirrors. There was another girl. She looked like me. Exactly like me.
Can you come with me in my dreams?
That'll do, baby.
What happens when the story dies? The evil is set free.
I have to return some videotapes.